Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I have a good one for you, because on today's video we are looking at the brand new Salomon S-Lab Pulsar 4. And you know that Salomon's S-Lab is their top of the line, all the very best products made for race day and made for you to get the most out of your runs. That's exactly what this shoe is going to do for you, and that's what we're talking about today. So let's get into it. First of all, I do just want to say thank you to Salomon. They were good enough to send me this pair of the S-Lab Pulsar 4 for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say, they don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. That said, you're going to be able to pick up a pair of the Salomon S-Lab Pulsar 4 for $220. And of course, I will place a link in the show notes below in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. Now, the S-Lab Pulsar 4 is the do-it-all trail shoe. It is designed for mixed terrain, and according to Salomon, it is specifically designed for shorter to mid-distance races. So think of those races between 20 and 80 kilometers, like the Mont Blanc Marathon. Now this is quite an update over last year's Pulsar 3, but I didn't run in the Pulsar 3 last year, so I can't compare it exactly, but let me tell you, it's still a big improvement. The Pulsar 4 has increased the stack height over last year, and the Pulsar 4 now has 34 in the heel, 28 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. Now, Salomon claims that in a US men's size 9, the S-Lab Pulsar 4 will tip the scale at 8.8 ounces or 250 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 12.5, it tips the scale at 10.5 ounces or 297 grams. So right off the bat, for me, when I see a sub 300 gram trail shoe, I know I am looking at something pretty light, something pretty special. And we'll talk about a few comparables towards the end of the video that I've also been running in over the last year or so. So why don't we do as we do, and let's start at the top and work our way down. And you can see that this is a nicely padded heel collar, but it's definitely on the thin side. You are definitely getting a good amount of heel protection, which obviously we need if we're running on some rocky trails, but the comfort is still going to be there without overdoing the cushioning and therefore overdoing the weight. The heel counter is semi-rigid. I mean, it's actually fairly rigid, but it isn't a rigid solid piece of plastic. It does have a little bit of give when I press it in, but I didn't experience any heel slip in the Pulsar 4. It really gave me an overall good lockdown, which isn't going to be surprising when we start talking about some of the other elements. Now, as far as the upper goes, Salomon is using a matrix upper, and that's a super high performance textile that is designed to prevent abrasion while still maintaining its lightness and ultra breathability. And I had no problems at all with the breathability of the Pulsar 4. I got these shoes soaked through multiple times on all my training runs, and there was never any sloshy feeling. The lockdown of the upper remained the same, and really, other than my feet getting cold when they first got wet, there was no noticeable difference to the lockdown, to the performance. So they dried quickly, or maybe not dried, but they weren't soaked through for my entire run, and they seemingly drained very quickly. Now, let's talk about the tongue for a second, because this tongue is nice and padded. I mean, it is a race day tongue, but it's on the very thick side of a race day tongue, right? It's not a road shoe, it's a trail shoe. We need a little bit of protection here on the top of our foot, and Salomon has managed that while still maintaining a very breathable tongue. The tongue wraps around the top of your ankle very nicely, and it is gusseted, and the gusset on the Pulsar 4 is very big. So it actually starts about here. So the tongue comes right down, the gusset starts about here, and it runs down to about this point on the shoe. So we're looking at a very big gusset. Because the gusset starts right at the front of the tongue, when you put your foot in, it almost feels like a booty fit. So once your foot is in, you do have that immediate feeling that the shoe is just wrapping around your foot, giving you a nice secure feeling. You can see we've got a little lace garage right here on the top of the tongue with a kind of tongue pull right on top of the lace garage, and this is actually pretty handy. And again, that's just because when you put your foot into the Pulsar 4, it isn't just as easy as a normal shoe, right? It's a nice secure fit. So sometimes I did have to kind of pull up on my tongue to help get my foot in, but that's not a complaint. I'm just telling you how I had to get my foot in. Now, the speed laces you've seen for several years on Salomon shoes, and they allow for a very quick lockdown and even pressure across the entire lace chain. Oh, and these speed laces are 4 times stronger than regular shoelaces. And depending on what kind of terrain you're running in, these speed laces are going to be a lot more utilitarian. You know, on a normal shoe, when you would tie your shoelaces and then you'd have the bows kind of flapping around, those potentially could get caught on branches or rocks, but not so with the speed laces. You just cinch them tight, tuck everything into the lace garage, and then you're good to go without any floppy bits flopping around. As far as the overlays go, yeah, there are quite a few overlays in a way, but that matrix upper does provide a lot of structure, and the upper itself is extremely durable, and you can see it's just standing up beautifully. But we do have an overlay coming around the toe bumper, and then right where your big toe is, we have a reinforced area right here, so if you were to kick a rock, it's highly unlikely you're going to do any damage to that big toe just because we've got so much protection right there. In fact, you can see it sounds quite tough, and then if I move around to the side like your little toe, you can see it's just a little softer. You can see me pressing it in. I'm unable to do that as easily on my big toe. Also, we've got the overlay coming all the way around the eyelet chain just to give that a lot of strength. There are some overlays again on the tongue, just because those speed laces actually weave in and out of the tongue. So that's just reinforced for that. Of course, we've got the branding that comes from the midsole all the way up onto the upper, and then wraps around, and we just have little overlays that really aren't adding much. We've just got some branding right there on the medial heel side. But I think what's most noticeable as far as an overlay, or maybe it's not an overlay, it's actually part of the midsole, but you can see these fins coming up, which is very much like Salomon's active chassis, and it is on both the lateral and the medial side. And basically these parts of the midsole that rise up right on your heel are just giving you a little extra support to kind of keep you running in a straight line. Now, it's important to mention that this is not a stability shoe. These elements are here because of the inherent unstable conditions that you are likely going to be running in these shoes. So these bits on the side, yeah, they're just going to give you a more stable ride when the ground beneath you starts to get a bit wobbly. Okay, now let's come down to the midsole, because this is where the magic is happening, as I always say, because this is generally where the magic happens. Now on the Pulsar 4, Salomon is using a dual density midsole foam, or I should say foams, plural, because they're using Opti Foam and Opti Foam Plus. Now the Opti Foam Plus on my colorway is the red foam, and it's going to be the top layer, and this is going to be softer, it's going to be more responsive, it's going to be very dynamic. This is the foam that's going to give this shoe its pop. It's going to make it feel like a race day shoe. But because this is a trail shoe and we're probably running on some very uneven terrain, you can't just have a super foam. We also need something a little denser to provide a little extra support, and that's where the Opti Foam comes in, and the Opti Foam is the lower level. So you can see the Opti Foam, the white foam on my colorway, is a little more prevalent here on the heel on both sides, and then it thins out as we get to the forefoot where we have more Opti Foam Plus. So ultimately what that means is when you are on your heels coming down the hill, you want a little more support. You don't want to be like wobbling all over the place because the foam is too soft. But when the terrain kind of opens up a little bit, you're able to open up your stride, start picking up the pace. That's when you're really going to appreciate this extra Opti Foam Plus in the forefoot. Now, the Pulsar 4 is not plated. There is no carbon fiber plate in this shoe. There is no TPU plate, and that is because Salomon's R&D led them to believe that it is completely unnecessary. And the reason for that is because this is a trail shoe, and most trail runners are not running at the kind of paces that actually benefit from having a plate. And Salomon's researchers did find out that the optimum benefit of the plate starts at about a 6:41 minute per mile, which is a 4:09 minute kilometer. So that's a fairly stiff pace. And as the benefits of the plate actually drop as the speeds get lower, and trail running is generally a lower speed event, especially when you're considering all the climbs where you could be walking up a hill, it just wasn't worthwhile to include a plate in the S-Lab Pulsar 4. And I'm definitely here for it. Now, most of the time when I run in a trail shoe with a carbon fiber plate, in my mind, because I'm running so slow usually on trails, at least relatively speaking compared to being on the road, I usually think of those plates being like a rock plate, just giving me a little extra protection underfoot in case I step on a rock or something. Well, Salomon has thought of that, and in the Pulsar 4, they are including Profil film. And basically, it's a very thin, flexible TPU film that offers a little extra protection from the feeling of rocks or sharp objects. It's a good addition, and in my experience, look, okay, now let me say that I haven't been testing this in the mountains. I have been testing this on some relatively fairly easy trails. I mean, it's quite rocky in places, very uneven, but we're not talking like big boulders. But even so, I didn't have any feeling like when I stepped on a rock, I didn't have that feeling coming through my foot, which was nice. And I guess I put that down to the Profil film. Now, if we come down to the outsole, Salomon is using their All-terrain Contagrip. Now, there is a little difference between the All-terrain Contagrip on the Pulsar 4 and the Pulsar 3. Now, the Pulsar 3 had 4mm lugs. The lugs on the Pulsar 3 are 3.5mm. And you might be thinking, Matt, why have they lowered the depth of the lugs? Isn't that going to result in less grip? And the answer is no, because there are more lugs on the Pulsar 4 than there were on the Pulsar 3. And that has actually increased the surface area of the bottom of the shoe by about 25% over the Pulsar 3. So when we have more surface area, by more surface area I mean more grippy bits holding onto the ground, the grip is actually going to be increased even though those lugs are 0.5mm lower. I hope that made sense. Now in my testing I was running up and down some very steep hills and I found the grip to be just spot on. There was not one time Even though I kind of tried to push the envelope by sliding my feet, there was not one time where I thought I was going to slip or the grip wasn't enough. You can also see that the lugs are positioned to gain the most amount of grip depending on what you're doing. So if each lug is kind of like an arrow, the arrow is pointing forward on the forefoot to give you a little extra grip, maybe when you're climbing. So when your foot wants to slide back, those lugs are going to grip a little more. And then they are facing the opposite direction on the heel. So when you are bombing that descent and you're kind of landing on your heels, sliding just a little bit, these lugs are going to just grip onto the ground and make sure your feet don't come out from under you. I had zero problems with the grip on the Pulsar 4. All in all, I was very happy testing this shoe. I mean, over the years, I have tested a lot of Salomon trail shoes, and I can't say I've ever been disappointed with the grip, but I'm still not, so that's something. Now, for those of you that have tried Salomon S-Lab shoes in the past, you may have found them a little narrow. I have not found this as narrow as I have in the past with other S-Lab shoes. And that is generally the case across the board. Over the last couple of years, Salomon has gotten just slightly wider, especially in the forefoot. I think that's going to open it up to a lot more people, a lot more foot shapes. And although I would still class the Pulsar 4 as a narrow shoe, like I never thought it was too narrow. I didn't get any hot spots on my little toe, which is generally where I feel it when the toe box is just a little narrow. And I would even say that the Pulsar 4 is definitely going to fit people with feet wider than mine. But take that for what it's worth. So I think the Pulsar 4 is, for $220, yeah, it's a lot of money, but when you're running in it and you have that lockdown and the shoe just feels like it's part of your foot, it's difficult for me to say that it's not worth it. And my friends, there are going to be a lot of competitors that I don't have, that I haven't run into compared to the Pulsar 4. But you know, if you're looking at picking up a pair of the Pulsar 4, you may also be looking at the Mount the Coast T1. Now, I would say the Mount the Coast T1 is not really a race shoe in the same way that the Pulsar 4 is a race shoe, but it's still a fairly light and very feature-packed trail running shoe. Now, the Mount the Coast T1 will cost you $180. It has 36 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for a 4mm drop. In my size, tips to scale at 312 grams. So the T1 weighs 15 grams more than my size of the S-Lab Pulsar 4. And next up, another racing trail shoe I think you might look at is the Hoka Tecton X3. Now, the Tecton X3 has a little higher stack height. We have 40 in the heel, 35 in the forefoot for a 5mm drop. But the X3 will cost you $275. So that's $55 more than the Pulsar 4. And in my size, it tips the scale at 322 grams. So the Tecton X3 weighs 25 grams more than the Pulsar 4. Now in the X3, you are getting dual carbon fiber plates. So if that's what you want in a trail shoe, then yeah, you're probably going to be looking at the X3. As I already explained, you're not getting the same benefits of a carbon fiber plate in a trail shoe as you do in a road shoe. So guys, now I want to hear from you. Have you run in any Salomon trail shoes? Are you thinking of picking up a pair of the S-Lab Pulsar 4? Definitely drop a comment and let me know. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the Salomon S-Lab Pulsar 4. Kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.